Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. A short and sweet video here about punctuation and semicolons, and for this video I'm going to be using the technique that I use in my lessons, which is the analogy of a seesaw, so that's why this is called the seesaw technique. Semicolons are of course important in our writing, not just in English but in any subject, any age, if you want to be seen to be writing effectively, and in the context of GCSE, surprise, surprise, you're going to get marks for using them correctly because they are regarded as a more complex form of punctuation to use. That doesn't mean to say you need to fill your writing with them, but just show evidence maybe once or twice that you can use them where necessary. So I'm just going to give you three sentences. For those of you that aren't sure, a seesaw, by the way, is a piece of playground equipment where somebody sits either end and you go up and down. That's basically it, and that's the analogy that I use in this video. So three sentences, very simple, and you'll notice that in each of these sentences they have a word which has been underlined in the middle of them. So in the top sentence and, middle but, and bottom, we've got the word plus there. So before we need to put a semicolon in these sentences, we first need to understand what these underlined words are and what function they have in terms of grammar in a sentence. So we just need to take a step back for a second, and then we'll use the seesaw technique to make these sentences better by putting a semicolon inside of them. So first of all, we need to see that these three sentences are examples of what is known as compound sentences. And compound sentences are sentences that give readers usually two pieces of information within the same sentence. And those two pieces of information in that sentence are joined together by what's called a conjunction. So the three words that I've underlined at the top in those sentences are conjunctions because their job is to join bits of information together in the sentence. So in other words, they're like the glue that joins those two bits of information together. If you think of compound, compound means a mixture. So we might talk about, for example, a compound element in chemistry, such as carbon dioxide, a mixture of carbon and oxygen, for example. We might talk about a compound word, like the word postman, which used to be two words, but over time has joined together to form one. So those sentences that I've given you there are all examples of compound sentences, and they're joined together with a conjunction. So the semicolon, effectively, in one of its jobs, and the job that I usually teach students, is that it does the same job as that conjunction, just in punctuation form. So the semicolon essentially, in these examples at least, is a conjunction, just symbolic rather than with an actual word, a punctuation mark rather than an actual word. Okay, so that should mean then, once you've understood the grammatical point of a conjunction and what a semicolon does, that you can very easily then demonstrate how to use a semicolon in a sentence. So let me show you the first example. So with our seesaw, the pivot in the middle of the seesaw becomes the semicolon itself. So in this example, you can see and is the middle of the sentence, it's the pivot of that sentence, and that's where we would put our semicolon. Either side of that pivot in the middle is each piece of information we get in that sentence. And you can see that we have our two pieces of information now separated by that semicolon in the middle. So this would now get you slightly more marks because you're demonstrating complex punctuation use, which the original sentence did not. So the sentence would now read, in Chris's garden there was a pond. There was also a summer house. And that would be an effective use of a semicolon. We're just replacing the and with a semicolon essentially. Second example, again, we would make the semicolon in the middle to replace but, and you've got your two bits of information either side. You notice that it's important when you use semicolons that each side of the sentence or each side of the seesaw or both bits of information in your sentence has to be about the same thing. That's what gives you the balance of the sentence. So you can't talk about something different in the other half of the sentence. You have to talk about the same thing. And finally, again, same analogy, plus is now the pivot. Replace plus with a semicolon, and you've got your two bits of information of that sentence either side. So essentially, in this sentence, you learn that the computers are in the middle of the room, but you also learn that the fridge and kettle are by the door. So you've got two bits of information there in that sentence. So that is what I mean by the seesaw technique. If you put the conjunction in the middle and then take the conjunction out and replace it with a semicolon, it's essentially doing the same job as that conjunction, but it means you're just showing off a bit more punctuation skill in your writing. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. A short video all about how to use semicolons effectively.